I'm Joyce.
And I'm Adrielle.
And we are Divinely Guided. Yes, and we are happy to be with you once again to discuss some self-care tips. And today's subject matter is one that most of us, or at least many of us, can relate to. And it's talking about screen time.
Yes.
So, we're going to turn it over to Adrielle and let her lead this discussion on screen time and how it can affect our self-care.
Yes. So, first, I want to talk about the benefits of reduced screen time. First is improved sleep, because like we've talked about on this podcast before, the blue light can keep you up. It can trick your brain into thinking that it's daytime. So whenever you're putting your phone down, it can help with getting more sleep. It also can obviously reduce eye strain, since if you're looking at the screen, it creates eye strain. And I've personally noticed now that I have like a office job that I spend more time on the computer, it can create more strain than I was used to before. So that can be a very real problem. It also creates better posture, which is a little bonus, I think, because people hunch over.
Yeah.
And then I go get massages from time to time, and one of the things they mention is text neck.
Yes.
Yeah, because you're constantly looking down like that, and it can actually create strain. And so they talk about text neck when you go get a massage, just from having your head craned at that angle that's not natural for so long. That's that big of a problem that is in the massage world, has a name. So as you can probably imagine, there's a lower risk of obesity, because when you're on your phone, you don't have to be active. So if you replace your screen time with something active, you're going to lower your risk of obesity. You're going to be burning more calories.
Right, and that makes sense. Makes sense. Can I go back to something you mentioned earlier? You said lower eye strain?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned since you're working in the office all the time, you've noticed more eye strain.
Yeah.
Even with your glasses on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, at one point, I went to the eye doctor because I was starting to have problems with my eyes. And I was really concerned because my father had glaucoma, and I was like, oh man, do I have glaucoma setting in? Because there was just pressure behind my eyes, and there was I felt almost as if my eyes were burned, if that makes any sense. If like you get a sunburn, like my eyes had a sunburn of some sort. And when I went to the doctor, of course they did all the tests, and they were like, no, you don't have glaucoma. What you have is basically eye strain. The computer screen was kind of, that light was burning into my eyes, and it was causing me trouble. And so that's when I started having to wear glasses when I was on the computer screen, or eventually got to where when I'm reading too. But when you said that, it triggered that memory for me.
How long ago was that?
It was a while ago. It was like you said, it was when I started working at my desk and at my computer more frequently. I went through the phase where computers became an integral part of everything we do during my career. So when I first started, I was more hands-on and more actively involved with students and things of that nature. And over time, I started being more involved with the computer. Right, and that's when I started noticing it.
Yeah.
But it's been probably about 20 years ago.
I was like, probably about 20 years ago.
About 20 years ago, yeah.
Interesting. And so with the next one, it was lower risk of obesity, like I was saying. I think, did I get to that?
You did.
Yeah, and I had a little anecdote about that. So when I was working in retail, I noticed that it was a lot easier to stay trim than it is when you're working on the computer all day. That's a big, if you go from an active job to a less active job, I promise you're going to notice it. So it really does help if you're just not on the computer or on the phone or on whatever all day. And it improves your mental health, which is why we're talking about it here. And with that one, I wanted to kind of segue into kind of the drawbacks of screen time, just because the mental health one is really important. So these are just kind of some of my thoughts about it. This was not research. These are just kind of my thoughts from what I've gathered from reducing my own screen time. I feel like spending too much time online, specifically social media, can cause like a warped perception of reality. because you're only seeing certain things that people choose to post. It can create that kind of comparison thing, but you don't really even know what people are dealing with. Like, they're just putting out there what they want to show you.
Right.
And not only that, but there's a lot of negative stuff out there, and so it can create this almost like doom and gloom, negative, skewed perception of reality. And they're both skewed perceptions, so life feels more manageable when you're not constantly seeing what other people are thinking all the time or what they're doing all the time. It just makes it easier for me to unplug. I don't have to hear everyone's opinion about everything all the time. I don't even think we're made to know what everybody thinks like that. So I just think you gotta decompress and detach sometimes. And I go through, well, I'll get to that later. And so I also think it encourages isolation, because it's just you and the phone or the tablet and the whatever. So you're just there isolating yourself in the social media or in the internet. And that one I did do a little research on, actually. That wasn't even just me. And I also found some research that said screen time, you disengage from whoever you're with. Because if you're on your phone, you're not talking to your mom or your dad or your brother or your cousin or whoever is around you. You're in your phone.
Right. And that brings to mind, one day we had gone out to eat, and your daddy, Jared, and we had gone out to eat, and like everybody's looking down at their phone. I was like, put those phones up.
Yeah.
Because we're out to dinner together, and nobody is really engaged. We're not really together.
Yeah.
We're just in the same space.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Did you have anything that you wanted to add? Because I want to get into some tips for reducing screen time, but if you had anything that you wanted to add here.
Well, a lot of the things that you said were also things that I had looked up. Excessive screen use can cause some obesity and sleep disturbance, depression, anxiety. Because like you said, you're looking at everything everybody's doing.
Yeah.
You're looking at all the positive things. They're editing out all the things that they don't want to really talk about, and you're seeing all that positive things, and it can make you start to think, man, what's wrong with me in my life? But yeah, promote aggressive behavior.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times people will be more aggressive online because they can do it almost anonymously. You're sitting back there, you can be rude, you can say things to people that you would never say to them face to face. So it just promotes, and sometimes that aggressive behavior. I've seen some really nasty and ugly things being said to people.
Yeah.
I'm like, you wouldn't dare say that to their face, but it kind of promotes that, and it also, I think, promotes that group think, because you look up people who are thinking those same things that you think, whether they're particularly if they're hateful and dangerous things. You find people who are willing to, I'm hiding behind my computer and I'll say all of this stuff, and I'll encourage you to think all that ugly stuff, and just promotes it in a not positive way.
Yeah. It really creates these like echo chambers where whatever you think gets echoed back to you and reinforced. And that's a really big thing. And I think the internet kind of has control of society in that way, because like whatever's popular on the internet, that's just kind of where society is, because people are just kind of constantly being pulled and pushed around by what's popular. It's kind of scary to me, actually. But just lowering screen time, reducing screen time, touching grass, as they say.
I like that, touching grass.
Go touch a little grass.
Yeah.
That'll help with that. But so I now have some tips.
Okay.
For reducing screen time. So first of all, I would say if you have an iPhone, I know specifically there's this thing called downtime, and like I've said before, it will turn off your apps. You can tell it which apps to keep on. So I can still text and call, like if there's like an emergency or something like that, but my apps shut off at 10 o'clock. So, and I'm probably asleep by 10 o'clock anyway. But if I'm not, my apps are off. So I can't even be on my apps into the night like that. Because there's no need to be on Snapchat at 11 o'clock for me. Like, I just don't need it.
Yeah.
And if people,
you're right. And I've gotten really bad about laying there after the lights are out, TV out, and I'm laying there and I'll just mindlessly scroll on my phone.
Yeah.
Note to Joyce, stop. Because I even know I already struggle to sleep, and I know that that isn't helping me to
Sleep
fall
any
asleep.
better. No,
Yes.
it's just not.
Even on dark mode,
Yeah.
it's not.
Even on dark mode.
Yes.
I'm a fan of dark mode.
I am too.
Feels better on the eyes,
Mm-hmm.
but still. And another suggestion I gave, kind of what we were talking about in another episode, is to kind of have some screenless hobbies. So to fill the time that you would have been on the screen is where you could do one of your screenless hobbies. But you're spending a lot of people are spending a lot of time of their day scrolling. And again, if you have an iPhone, it'll straight up tell you
Right.
how much time you've been spending. I don't know about Android. I don't know. Maybe they do it too. I just don't know. But they'll straight up tell you your screen report and how much time you spent on your phone.
And sometimes it is alarming for me.
It is an alarming number sometimes.
I'm like, you know how much I could have done in that time?
Absolutely. And there are actually YouTubers who will replace their screen time with something else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to see the benefits of that. They're like, oh, I got 9 hours on the screen a day this week, so I'm going to spend 9 hours doing something else.
9 hours.
9 hours, yes.
Wow.
So I'm going to spend those 9 hours doing something like productive. And so they'll spend it reading or working out. And I'm like, I mean, that's kind of had to be more of how it was before we had that option.
You're absolutely right.
But again, I came up in, I didn't say this, I said again, like I've said this before, but I kind of came up in the age where, well, when I was a kid, we didn't really have phones like that. It wasn't really a thing.
Well, how old were you when you got that first phone?
This generation's complicated because we grew up without all of the high-tech stuff, but we watched it. We grew up kind of with it. Like, we didn't grow up with it, but we grew, and it was getting more and more advanced.
I think you don't realize how early you had that phone.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying like a little
Because you were in, at max 3rd grade.
I didn't have a phone in 3rd grade.
Yes, you did. When you all were in Northside is when you all got those phones.
I think I was like in 4th actually. It was not 3rd, which big difference, but you know. I think it was about 4th grade. But the thing is, those phones, they couldn't do much. So I'm saying like I remember
is true.
when the first iPhone came
Yeah, because it was still the little fold, what do you call that phone?
Flip phone.
Flip phone.
I didn't have, it wasn't even a flip phone, it was one of the little flat ones.
Oh, I thought you had a flip phone.
No.
Okay.
So like we didn't have social media like that.
No,
we didn't do the touch screen. There were no iPads.
You
we
didn't.
still had. I grew up with the little, what are the CD players, the big CD players. We had to put the CD over in it.
Right, you did have one of those CD Walkman.
Yeah,
things.
I think people lose how this generation came up with VCRs. We know about VHS tapes and all that kind of stuff like that. We like DVD players came around later, but when I was a little kid, like we were using the VCR.
You're right. I was
dial-up internet, fax machines.
Yes, and I hated that dial-up internet, but that was a big deal when we got that dial-up internet because most people didn't even have it.
Yeah, like you couldn't be on the phone while somebody was on the internet.
Right.
The whole thing, like we grew up with that, and
that's true.
It's interesting. People forget. I'm still old enough to remember that stuff.
Right. I was laughing with your father, and we off the subject, but that's okay. It's our thing.
Yeah, okay.
We were laughing just yesterday because we were talking about the Rugrats. Something triggered a Rugrat memory back to Norman.
Yeah.
And so back to Norman. And so it reminded us of when we would travel and you all were young. And you remember when I had purchased the portable TV?
Yeah.
And it had a monitor. No. The ones where there was a monitor that we could place on the back of the driver's seat.
Oh, you mean
those.
Right.
And then because you were saying the movies on the CD or the DVD.
Yeah.
And we could put the movies in the DVD player, and you and Jared were watching movies while we were traveling.
Yeah.
And you're sitting, and people were, and when we first started doing it, people were looking at us like, they got TV in that car.
Yeah.
And then we eventually went to where all of the vans, because we would rent vans to give us more space for travel.
Yeah.
And we got to a point where all the vans started having the monitors that would come down from the ceiling.
Yeah.
Right. And so we had made that advanced. And now it's gotten so advanced, you don't need any of that anymore because everybody can watch whatever they want right there in their lap.
Yeah.
But we were talking about that just yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. I still feel like I had a childhood outside.
Right. Well, you all were outside a lot.
Yeah. I feel like we didn't have a screen childhood. We had an outside climbing trees childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I don't know, that it gets lost. Because sometimes you'll have like a teacher or whatever who's like, oh, do y'all know about VHS tapes? And we're all like, yeah, we grew up with VHS tapes.
Mm-hmm.
They just get kind of lost in time.
You know, even when we first built this house, every bedroom had the DVD player. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Had the ones that you know, they were all connected to the TVs, but everybody had one in their bedroom.
Yeah.
And see, there's just zero need for any of that anymore.
Yeah.
We threw them away recently. It was like, man.
I still think I have a DVD.
Do you still have yours?
Maybe.
Oh, okay, maybe we threw away the one in our bedroom and the one that was down here, downstairs.
Anyway, just a little side note. So, yeah, screen time.
Mm-hmm.
Reducing it.
Right.
We got on that because I was saying it used to be easier to have reduced screen time than it is now.
Right, right.
That was why we got on that tangent.
Yes.
Okay, and I think that is all I had.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But I think that's really important. I think we don't realize just how much of our time is spent on that screen.
Yeah.
And besides all of the physical and emotional consequences, just the waste of valuable time that you could have been doing something else. Because I'm always thinking, you know, I'm a educator by trade and just even by personality. I'm an educator. And I'm always thinking how you can learn and how you can become a master or a specialist in a particular area. And if you were to spend 5 hours a day studying a particular subject matter or skill, you could quickly master that skill in a way that you could teach it to other people because you would be a master of that. There is a 10,000 hour rule. If you study anything 10,000 hours, you become a master in it. It would not take you long to get to that if you're doing large chunks of time away from the screen when you were putting that time into that screen. So there are so many other benefits besides the physical and the emotional benefits of limiting screen time.
Yeah.
And it is, you know, when you're talking self-care, it has to be something that you're aware of. Because with the strain, like you said, on the neck, the strain on the eyes, the strain, you know, on your heart because you're not being as active physically. I could tell when I went from a job where I was out playing with the kids in Project Uplift versus when I was in the office doing more administrative tasks.
Yeah.
As I started to rise a little bit, I didn't rise much, but when I started to rise a little bit in the ranks at Auburn, I spent less and less time with my students and more time at that computer. And literally, you know, there were other things too, but I literally one day I start putting on some clothes and I'm like, I can't even wear this anymore. You know, that slow creep.
Yeah.
But being less active was a critical, it was a big part of that.
Yeah, you will feel that difference.
Yes. Do you think you feel that difference? Oh, you already said that.
Yeah, absolutely.
From going from working retail and being on the floors and walking and talking to people all the time.
Yeah.
I think it also hampers our social skills.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, you call it social media, but you're really hampering your social skills. I feel like so many people have lost the ability to just have small talk and have human interaction because you're on the computer tells you to like, you start a sentence, it'll finish it for you. You don't even have to process just having an everyday conversation.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm guilty of it. I hit those likes because it's easy. I don't even have to type it in anymore. It's got some responses or reactions already in the computer. All I have to do is select one of those. And again, my friend Jared gets on to me all the time about selecting one of those. He's like, will you respond, Alexis? But anyway, so that's our word for today. Stop spending so much time on the screen. We tell you that even as we ask you to
Yes.
subscribe
Yes.
and watch
Yes.
and share.
Lower screen time after this podcast.
Right, lower your screen time, but keep us in it. We're not telling you to get rid of all of your screen time, because we want you to come and share some ideas with us about self-care.
Yeah.
And share in our conversation. Remember to leave those comments, subscribe, share, tell a friend, tell an enemy, tell a dog if he'll watch it.
Yeah.
But do something today that helps promote your personal self-care, because you deserve it. Yes?
Yes.
Good night.
Good night.